Okay, everybody, Stephen Key here, and today I have a very special guest, especially for inventors that want to file an LLC because it's so important. Matt, thank you very much for coming on inventRightTV.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right, before we get started, first, here's my disclaimer, everybody. I don't say this too often. We're not giving legal advice, maybe a little business advice, but not legal advice. Okay, I believe that what I've learned, when that magical licensing agreement lands in your lap and you're so excited, and you see at the very beginning it says your name, that you're going to sign a licensing agreement in your name, that's a no-no. It should be in some type of business entity. So, and I like an LLC because it seems to be pretty darn easy to file it and maintain it. There's not a lot of rules and regulations. I mean, it's just a kind of an easy business entity. And today we have the guy that's on, Matt at LLC University.
Correct. LLCuniversity.com.
Now, here's what's crazy, that everybody's listening now. It's so important to file an LLC. But you're very busy. I mean, how many people are filing LLCs and why?
Let's see here. So I know the very long version of the story about what originally brought the LLC legal entity into the United States in Wyoming in the late 70s. And then the way the IRS treated the LLC originally, first it treated it as a corporation, then it treated it as a partnership. And once the IRS said, you know what, you can treat this LLC in one of multiple ways, a few states had already adopted statutes for LLCs. But then kind of in the mid-90s, the LLC entity grew like crazy because states passed legislation to get behind this legal entity that, in short, provided the traditional benefits, the liability protection of a corporation with the flexibility of pass-through taxation of either a sole proprietorship or a corporation. So that's a little bit of the more technical history. And over the years, kind of where it stands now is that LLC formation is about 5 to 6x times the amount of corporations that are formed. So corporations are just traditionally known because they came over from England. They've been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. There's a lot of benefits to them, but they're very rarely used by by solopreneurs, small business owners, and even very large businesses also operate as LLCs. There's just it's very flexible and very, very easy to use. So, and just over the years, there's more books, more information on the internet. People are becoming more aware of, this thing called an LLC. What is that? Let me look into it.
What's it stand for?
Limited Liability Company. It's a great one. I got to catch you right there because I've written something funny in the past. The two biggest language mistakes that people make around an LLC, it may seem like I'm being nitpicky, but it's actually quite important because someone can make a mistake when they're talking to their accountant. They might be like, I have a limited liability corporation. No, you don't. There's no such thing. That legal entity does not exist. It's a limited liability company. The other one that people say sometimes is, hey, like I'm an LLC or I LLC'd myself. And it's like, no, you are not. You and the LLC are separate and distinct legal persons. Technically, you and I are natural persons. An LLC and a corporation are legal persons. They are separate and unique from us, and we operate on behalf of them. We basically have agency authority to, transact business on behalf of the LLC, bind it into contracts and agreements, but we own it, and it's kind of like, it's an extension of you. It's an extension of you, not one and the same.
I like it because it's fairly easy to do. It gives me a little bit of a separation. I don't want that contract to be in my name. I want it to be in this business entity. But what I found, it's fairly easy. Now, I was in California a few years back in an LLC, and it was very expensive every year. Why? And I'm in Nevada now. Why was in some states it's really affordable. What's the difference?
So in a nutshell, this is a little bit oversimplified. You have an initial LLC filing fee and usually an annual report. Now, that's nationally speaking. There's a lot of variance to that. Many states do not have an annual report. Some states have lots of other reports. So in California, you form an LLC, 90 days later, you file a statement of information. Then you file that every 2 years. Then with really confusing due dates, you have to pay an $800 annual franchise tax. Then if you have gross receipts over $250,000, you pay a sliding scale called an LLC estimated fee. And then you have a Form 568. California and a few states are very quirky. The real reason behind California being confusing, besides the other quirks of California, is that in the majority of states, the LLC annual report is filed with the Secretary of State's office. That's sort of the agency that administers the creation and filing of LLCs. Okay. Well, what happens in California is you have the California Franchise Tax Board now coming in, which is the revenue authority of California. Nice. And they kind of dip their hands in and create some legal requirements. So in states where you have the revenue agency or the tax agency involved, it's a little bit more of a pain in the butt. It can be a little bit more expensive. It's just more annoying. However, for most people, they should still be forming their LLC in the state where they are residing, because that's typically where they're doing business. And this is actually this is the largest question. It's the most confusing. There are the most myths about it, and the majority of people are very misled about what's the best state. I could unpack that for hours, but we can get into that too. But yeah, that's
okay. So, but basically, you want to file in the state that you live in, correct? That you're doing business in.
Correct. It's really the latter. The technical aspect of it is the LLC should initially be created in the state where the LLC is transacting business.
Got it. Okay.
That area also has there's some nuance and some grayness to it. However, for most people who are small business owners, solopreneurs, or even have a small business with a number of employees, wherever that is taking place, or even if someone has an online business, here's a good one. People say, "Oh, but my business is online." The states don't care about online, because if your business is online, you are still operating that business from, let's say, primarily your home or the coffee shop or wherever. You're somewhere outputting and uploading and interacting with the internet. That's where you're transacting business. So for 99% of people, where they're transacting business happens to be the state of where they reside.
Got it. Now, you started a business called LLC University. Why did you start that business? Because you help people in every state, right? I mean, I went. That's remarkable. Correct. I mean, but they're all a little bit different. How do you have all that knowledge with what every state wants? Isn't that very confusing, even for a company like yours?
It's insane. Yeah, that's like it's the most complicated thing we do, and therefore, I mean, it's been 10 years, Stephen, and it took. I mean, when I started in one state 10 years ago. And then a year after that, I expanded into a second state. And then I was like, whoa, this is a national thing. It was so overwhelming at the time to have that vision, because we were creating super detailed, very step-by-step, like A to Z of the LLC formation. So it took us a good 7-8 years just to have, just across the 40 number, somewhere to be in the low 40s. But on the website, we were speaking earlier off camera, I've written over 1 million words. It ends up being, I forget the count, it's like 14 or 15 or 16. It's the equivalent of 15, more or less, nonfiction books on just only LLC formation. So, I mean, we're obsessive. I'll give you a small example. I mean, we form LLCs in a lot of states. In order for us to get access to the state's website or look at filings, you have to have a legal entity in that state. Okay. So we have dozens of LLCs that we form for no other reason than just to get into the nitty-gritty aspects of the online filing, so we can teach them step by step. Or, we've even caught mistakes from the IRS making major public announcements. No, wait a minute.
Why did you do this? I mean, this sounds crazy.
Well, initially, prior to this, I've always been an entrepreneur. Sort of once I was 19 going on 20, entrepreneurship just became very appealing to me. And that led to my beginning of basically self-education, reading books, and really kind of sparking that fire to be an entrepreneur. My first career was selling real estate wholesaling. I bought a few rental properties in Philadelphia, So I formed my first LLC and bought my first property when I was, I think, 20 or 21. I got my real estate license when I was 19. And then fast forward a couple years, my business awareness had expanded a lot. And I heard about this thing called digital information products. Like, hey, you can sell what you know on the internet. And just kind of comparing, hey, this business model that I have in Philadelphia is great. And it was, it was a successful career, but it's quite limiting. I could have a business that's on the internet. I could help people everywhere across the country, even in other countries. And so initially it was really out of self-interest. I wanted more freedom, physical freedom, location freedom, financial freedom. And then I was like, hey, I know how to form LLCs in Pennsylvania. Like, I think there's something there. And it really has just evolved to an insane level over the past 10 years. I mean, even what we do from a technical perspective, just to make our website like wicked lightning fast to handle the amount of traffic that we have is an insane endeavor in and of itself. But I didn't even know that I was going to
get
into that when I started.
You get a lot of traffic. You told me that earlier.
Yeah, we get hundreds of thousands of visitors per month just on the website, and I forget the YouTube stats. I'm not a big stat guy. I don't check. But, So why did I do it? I mean, initially,
this is crazy.
It started. I wanted a better business model for myself.
All right.
I've also always loved teaching. I love communicating. I love helping people. I'm a research fanatic. I love digging really, really, really deep. I mean, exhaustive. I put in a lot of effort. It's almost OCD in a way. Like, some people have a hard time working with me. I'm very intense with it. I'm very passionate. And I don't know. I think a lot of things are very oversimplified. So we dig really deep. And yeah.
So let's talk about your website for just a minute, because people will find it. We'll put everything down below. So I live in Montana.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can go to your site, look up the rules or regulations in Montana. I get all the information that gets me started. Is that correct? I mean, how do I work with you? How do I work with you?
You can't work with me one-on-one. But you can work with me vicariously one-on-one.
Okay.
We have created everything. Let's say Montana, for example. It's not just to get you started. On our website, completely for free, is a step-by-step course that takes you through, figuring out your LLC name, searching on the state's website, making the decision about your registered agent, filing the forms with the Montana Secretary of State. We have a free operating agreement. We show you how to fill out your operating agreement. We show you how to get your tax identification number from the IRS. We show you how to then file the annual report in Montana. We tell you how to open up a bank account. I mean, everything is there for them, and they're then off to the races. So we don't we're big proponents of sort of DIY and kind of learning and building that. I call it the LLC muscle. I'm a big fan of, like, if you DIY with the proper guidance, you really just learn a lot about the fundamentals of how the business society operates through legal entities, and it becomes less scary. You understand it better, and then therefore people can use those LLCs. Like, I feel like it creates a better business. How much
money am I saving by going to your website?
Well, in Montana, you're probably saving the filing fee in Montana. If I remember, I usually have all the fees off the top of my head. Montana, I believe, is $70. The annual report is not a lot. It's $10 or $15 or $20. Don't hold me to it. If you Google LLC University LLC filing fees, we have all of those fees broken down. So in Montana, you're going to save hundreds of dollars. But in a state like New York, right? Let's jump to a quirky state. In our eyes, every state has its quirks. New York is very crazy because they have this newspaper publishing requirement, which is very antiquated. And if somebody lives in the 5 boroughs of New York, that newspaper publication fee can be anywhere from $800 to $1,200. No joke. We teach for free how you can actually form your LLC and use an address in Albany County and spend about $150 to $200 on your newspaper ads. Therefore, we save people in New York on average about $1,000 or more dollars. It all depends on the state, but essentially the only fee that people pay is the fee to the state to form the LLC. And if they hire a commercial registered agent, instead of being the registered agent themselves, there's another fee there. But there's no service fee.
So everybody that's listening today, this is fantastic, because you know my feeling about paying for stuff. you have to learn how to do it yourself. You're going to save yourself some money. This is the place to go, because if not, I've got to pay someone to do this for me, right?
You pay someone to do it for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I think there are many instances that warrant getting really specific, really tailored legal advice.
Okay.
But to be honest, Stephen, the majority of the market feels very overwhelmed by that, may not need that, or just doesn't have the budget for it. Because, I mean, I pay my attorneys thousands of dollars to just sometimes, over the course of weeks, talk to them about the various different things that I do. But I didn't start out like that. I formed my first LLC myself. I filed my first trademark myself. It got rejected, and then I hired an attorney to file the rebuttal. But there was a lot of value, I think, in the learning process. I'm big on learning.
Yeah, so am I. I think education is the number one thing. You can always hire out, but first learn what you're hiring. Learn what type of questions you need to ask. You really start with education. I'm a big believer.
Here's something to take some pressure off of people too. Sorry to interject. If anybody wants, they could go on the website, check out any state, and just read through our lessons. They don't even actually have to do it. This is something I recommend too. You can actually, the majority of states have an online filing and a mail filing.
All right.
Print out the paper form and fill it out by following our instructions, and just sleep on it a couple nights and get familiar with what the different terms mean. Right. It's almost like you fake file your LLC, fill out your operating agreement. Just don't get the tax ID number from the IRS, but almost like do everything else and learn about it. And then from there, if they want to hire somebody, they're well equipped with they have a lot of questions, or they know what they're talking about. A lot of people just go and, I don't know, I'm kind of biased. I've hired a couple guys recently to finish some garage floors. And I had a friend be like, man, just hire an expert. And I talked to a couple experts, and they're like, hey, do you want 400 grit? Do you want 800 grit? Do you want high satin? Do you want low satin? I'm just like, do you want urethane? I don't know what these things are. Right. So, after talking with a few guys, it's kind of like you need to go in with you need to be able to sit at the table and have a conversation if you are going to hire somebody. So
if not, you don't even know what questions to ask.
Here's the thing. A lot of people, and this is in general, maybe a lot of people who don't find our website, if I can be biased, they know kind of what an LLC is. Okay. They hear about its benefits a lot, and then they're just like, all right, I'm going to do this LLC thing, and they do it, and then they don't know what they did, and they don't know how to use what they have. All right. And maybe they're okay, but maybe it's not the best best method of operation.
Education's key. It's the number one thing to do. Matt, thank you very much. We're going to have all the information down below. If you're thinking about filing an LLC, if you want more information about how to file one, what does it do for you? Check out LLC University. They've got it all there. I'm amazed. Matt, I cannot thank you enough.
Thank you, Stephen.